Imagine being married for 25 years with a seemingly perfect life, only to find out you can't satisfy your partner's growing desires. Thomas and Sophia. Henry sipped fine wine as they waited for their main course at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Thomas was wearing a tuxedo and Sophia was wearing one of her most provocative dresses. A simple red cocktail dress with a plunging neckline. It only reached to her knees, highlighting her sexy legs. It wasn't tight, but it wasn't loose either, showing off her sexy figure to anyone who wanted to watch, and there were many of them. Both men and women. Thomas was watching too. In fact, he could barely take his eyes off her. "You look so sexy today, honey," Thomas said softly. "Thank you, darling. You look elegant and sexy too," Sophia replied as a blush colored her cheeks. "Just think we've been married for a quarter of a century." Thomas laughed. "Oh my, in the first or? When you say it like that, it seems like a lot longer than just 25 years. Sophia giggled. Thomas laughed again as he held Sophia's gentle hand. His thoughts went back to when he first met his wonderful wife some 27 years ago. Their romance was not a whirlwind of passion. It took Thomas almost 2 years to ask Sophia to marry him. She immediately agreed, asking why he was waiting so long. They set a wedding date after college. Over the next 25 years they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, who are also now in college. Since their last anniversary, Thomas has noticed a big change in his wife. Sophia was now 45 years old. Like Thomas, both of them were still fit and healthy. They exercised almost every morning before work. For 20 years, Thomas worked for the same company where he was highly respected. Sophia was the executive assistant to the director of human resources at the company. They both adored each other, but Sophia had been wanting sex a lot more lately since she turned 40. She wanted a lot more sex. If Thomas could, she would. It was every night. That didn't mean Thomas had slowed down. Sophia just wanted him more than ever before in her life. At first Thomas thought she was cheating on him. But if that were the case, why would she want him more? To make sure, he hired a private investigator to find out what was going on. After 2 weeks they found nothing unusual. She went to work and returned home, except on Friday evenings. On Fridays she met several women from work. She drank 2 drinks, first bourbon with ice, then soda. Then she would leave and go straight home. Thomas wasn't complaining. He just wanted to know why this was happening. And yet, a year later, it continued. He was a shadow of his former self after a year. "I want to talk to you after dinner, honey," Sophia said quietly. Thomas looked up from his steak, wondering if this was going to be a conversation about her leaving. "Sure. No problem when we get home." "Okay." "No, rather, I think I will take a walk in the park." "No, not in the park at night. The closest park to them now, or when they were home, was a place where no one went at night. Even the police did not appear there at night, unless necessary. And then they went with a special forces detachment. It was not lawless, but a lone woman or man was not safe there after dark." "Okay. Home then." "I wouldn't want to." "I understand. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside," Sophia replied, smiling at him. They continued with dinner and even grabbed dessert and a glass of champagne to celebrate their anniversary. Sophia and Thomas went to a nearby club for a last drink and a little dance before heading home. She loved him with all her heart and loved the feeling of him near her. After finishing their drinks, they headed home. Thomas was truly in love with his wife, and thoughts of making love to her when they returned home were running through his mind. Sophia also thought about making love to her husband when they got home. When the garage door closed, Sophia kissed Thomas, got out of the car and walked around to Sophia's side. They made love. They are both getting older. Although in their early 40s, they were not really old. Sophia could see that her demands for sex were wearing him out. She suspected that he had lost at least 15 pounds over the past year. Despite eating large portions at dinner, she was very worried about him and thought long and hard about a solution that could benefit both of them. This is exactly what she wanted to talk to him about, although he might have thought that it would not benefit them. She was ready to accept his decision. Whatever it was. Thomas. Yes, darling. Thomas answered. I want to talk to you about something. But first I need to tell you something. Okay. Go ahead and talk. Thomas said, resting his head on his hand as he looked at his beautiful wife. First of all, I know you've noticed that I want a lot more sex with you. I noticed, and thanks. It was very exciting. Please. Secondly, I noticed that even though you started eating more, you lost quite a lot of weight. This is true. Third, I'm starting to experience age-related hormonal changes in my body. And it's only going to get worse before it gets better. It's clear. So what caused this desire for more sex? Yes, that's true. Dear, I want you all the time while I was holding myself back. It was very difficult. But for your sake, I did understand. I thank you. Just let me tell it my way. Okay. Sophia asked. Fine. Just know that I love you. I know that. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I've thought about this a lot and I don't want to lose you because of what's going to happen in the next couple of months. Maybe years. The doctor could not give me an exact time frame, since it is different for each woman. I may stop wanting so much sex tomorrow or in 5 to 10 years. I know that it will have a very bad effect on your health if you try to deal with me. Sophia was silent for a minute, tears streaming down her cheeks as she sobbed. Thomas also began to cry. After hearing her words, he just knew that she had done or was going to do something that he could not accept. Sophia saw tears in her husband's eyes. She knew he thought she was cheating on him. She would never do this, at least until this conversation. Just so you know, I haven't cheated on you, and I won't unless you give me permission. What? Just listen. Please. Thomas, I do not want to lose you. I love you. I did some research. There are some things that can be done. Which Thomas asked softly. Thomas, I need more sex. Sophia said quietly what he shouted. It doesn't have to be real. She said what? Yes, if it's okay for you. But from experience before we met, I knew it wouldn't help. Oh God. No, do you want to sleep with other men? Sometimes. I know your attitude towards cheating. So I want to discuss it with you first. What you offer is beyond. I know. But I don't want to kill you. I see this could happen. I don't want this to happen. I want to be with you always. I want to hold your hand when we both feel bad and hurt. I'm trying to keep you alive. Honey. Thomas simply looked at his wife. He saw sadness, pain and despair in her eyes, and I heard them in her voice. She didn't try to find someone new behind his back. I don't know, Anne. Thomas replied. Sophia knew he was deep in thought. He only called her Anne. When he was in thought, she reached out and gently touched his cheek. He smiled at her. So what's your plan? Asked Thomas. On the weekends. I'm all yours on weekdays. Well, you probably don't want to know. Do you know? Tell me, what are you planning to do and with whom? He asked with a hint of anger in his voice. Fine. As for with whom? I do not know yet. As for what? I get an hour for lunch when I find someone we will date. Fine. Anything else? Yes, tonight's a week. Sophia said quietly. What evenings? Tuesday and Thursday. Do you need to respond today? Asked Thomas. No need. Dear. Fine. Let me summarize what I heard. Friday, Saturday and Sunday. You are mine. Monday and Wednesday evenings. You are mine. During working hours, you'll probably sleep with someone else. Probably in a cheap hotel from Monday to Friday. And on Tuesday and on Thursday evenings you'll probably be in the same cheap hotel. This is all the way you said it. I look like a woman of easy virtue. Sophia almost screamed. Think about it. Doesn't what you're proposing mean that you want to be her god? No, I just want to find a way not to kill my husband. Understand? Come here, Thomas said, opening his arms to her. Sophia crawled into his arms. She cried and sobbed quietly. Do not cry. I'll just think about it for a day or two. Isn't that what you meant? Yes, Sophia replied, sobbing. I love you so much and I don't want to lose you. either because you will die or because you will suddenly hate me for suggesting such things. I know you love me. Otherwise you would already be with other men. Never. I would never do this behind your back. You trust me not to do such things. Just as I trust you. I could never do this. I never even thought about doing this to anyone else. Our sex life has always been the best and now it's even better. But I know I couldn't handle much more. Let me think about it. God, I love you so much. Sophia said I love you just as much. Good night. Good night, darling. Thomas replied, still hugging Sophia until they both fell asleep. The next morning, he asked, can we talk again about what you would like to do? He asked. Sophia's eyes opened wide. Thomas saw of passion and fear. He shook his head. Sophia, my dear, sweet Sophia, you have nothing to fear from me unless you go behind my back to satisfy your need. Understand? Yes, she answered hesitantly. I need answers to questions that I need answers. Okay. I'll try to answer them. If I can't, it's because I don't know the answer. Okay. Sure. No problem. I don't remember. If you said, will you have sex with your colleagues? I don't know. Yet during business hours. Probably will this be a problem for you? No, not for me. I think. Maybe for you, how? Sophia asked carefully. Does your company have a policy against dating between employees about? Understand? Yes, I have. But this applies only to managers and their subordinates and not to employees at the same level. Are you sure? Asked Thomas. Sophia closed her eyes for a few seconds. Then opened them. I can't remember. Guess I'll have to check. Okay. Let's put this question aside for now. Next Tuesday and Thursday nights. Do you have any idea who you'll be dating? Or are you planning to choose someone at random the first time? I thought I would just choose someone at random. Next time I will meet with the same person. I would prefer it to be a new person every time. Otherwise you might form an unwanted connection with them. You may see it several times. But not in a row. Okay. Looks like you've been thinking about this a lot overnight. Sophia asked. Yes, I thought about it this morning at breakfast. Okay. How do you want me to organize this? Oh my God. I need to think about this a little more before I can tell you this. There will be rules. Regulations. Yes, the rules. Rule 1. Men must always use protection. Oh, those are the rules. Fine. Except maybe for a colleague. When he proves that he has no diseases. I'm on the pill and I'll never stop taking it for anyone other than you. Okay. That was Rule 2, pills. Rule 3, proof of the absence of diseases. Certainly. From your rules and questions. It turns out that you're going to let me do this so that I don't kill you with love and affection. Thomas laughed, looking into Sophia's eyes. Not quite yet. My dear Sophia, he said, smiling. Is there anything else you'd like to know? She asked. Yes. As for colleagues, do you have anyone in mind? Not really. What does it mean? Asked Thomas. I haven't thought about who to choose yet. There are a few young men that I am attracted to and who have flirted with me a few times. But I have never cheated on you. Are you flirting back a little? Then I chase them away from my table. Are any of them married? Asked Thomas. Yes. Will that be a problem for you? Not for me. But perhaps for their wives. He replied. You're right. But if they choose me, it will be their problem. Not mine. I don't care. So you can do what you want. But if your wife finds out, she could call a big scandal at work and maybe even fire you about. You're right again. Okay. Only bachelors from work. What if they humiliate you or insult you when they are with you? I'll leave first. Maybe I'll give them a slap in the face. What if they hit back? I'll come home and tell you, and I'll never see them again. But now we have a problem. A man will hit you and I have to answer it. The only way is to beat him to a pulp. No, you won't. You could end up in jail. Then what will I do? Just thinking out loud. Honey, just thinking. I hope your co-workers aren't like this. Or you would have noticed this in the office by now. Now we move on to weeknights. When you're going to find men on your own. These men could be dangerous to you. What do you suggest? Sophia asked with concern in her eyes. I don't know. I need to think about it. I know that you are disappointed in your current state. I know you need more than I can give you. I know that you prefer younger men than I do. I don't want you to suffer or go behind my back to get what you need now. But so many things can go wrong. From the simplicity of an office romance to the night you end up in the hospital because of some creep who likes to beat up women. You're scaring me. Thomas. Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. So I guess you haven't fully thought this through yet. I think no. How about sex with? Some of my friends asked Thomas. Oh, I think this might get complicated. They can come here every night wanting to get me eyes wide in shock at what she had just said. I looked at Sophia with new respect. She knew and accepted that she was mine. Not if I explained to them what's going on. Thomas said, how many single friends do you have? Sophia asked quietly. Well, let's think about it. There's Mac, Harry, Philip, Rye, Billy and Nathan. They're all good guys. Except Harry. He's too fat for me. I'm afraid. Okay. Not Harry. Do the others have girlfriends? I would not want. Only. Billy has a girlfriend whom he meets regularly. But I don't think they are in a serious relationship. Let me think about it. 5 guys I could date and then come back to. You'll have at least 2 evenings a week to recover. Unless you want more evenings. Let's see. Now I think it's time to sleep. Of course. I love you so much for even discussing this with me. Please. Darling. I love you very much too. I'll often never forget this. I won't forget. Good night. This happened when I was in the 1st or 2nd year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. Good night, love, Thomas replied. Sophia and Thomas snuggled close to each other and quickly fell asleep. The next morning they both went to work. They kissed each other goodbye and left at work. Thomas sat at his desk in the office thinking about what Sophia needed, what she wanted, what she needed. She had the courage to talk to him about her needs and not go behind his back to get them met. As he contemplated their relationship, his executive assistant walked into his office with papers to sign. Olivia was an attractive woman in her late 30s. She had long black hair and green eyes. Her face was also very pretty. As she placed the papers in his input tray, she noticed Thomas looking at her. Yes, she asked her what you were looking at me. Thomas. Oh, I think so. Sorry. Is everything okay with you? And Sophia? Olivia asked. Yes. Everything is fine. Why do you ask? By the expression of your face and your eyes. You were thinking about something disturbing. Looking at me all the time. Sophia cheated on you. Oh God. No. She hasn't. Thomas replied. Olivia sat down on the chair in front of Thomas's desk. She raised her left eyebrow. How can women do this? Thought Thomas. He continued to look at Olivia and frowned. Don't you have a job? He asked softly. Frowning. Yes, Olivia replied, remaining where she was just looking at. Thomas stared back all the while thinking about what Sophia could do. Now if he gave her permission. Tell me. Thomas said. Olivia, what's going on between you and Sophia cannot. Sorry. Thomas Henry. Olivia growled at Sophia's begins. Age-related hormonal changes in the body. He said, observing Olivia's reaction. Oh dear you. Poor thing. I noticed that you have lost a little weight and look tired. That's not half the battle. Tell me. Olivia demanded. No, I cannot. Okay. Let me guess. She wants more sex. She wants to find young guys. So she doesn't kill you with her need for more. Thomas was shocked by the language Olivia used. Even though she was married. Thomas just sat there trying not to let on that. Olivia had guessed the problem he was facing. Okay. Don't tell me. Olivia said irritably. Thomas buried his face in his hands. Rubbed his face. Then stood up and closed the door. It wasn't unusual for him and Olivia to talk about work matters. He sat back down and just stared at Olivia. First of all, when I say you should not go beyond the boundaries of this office. Is it clear? Yes, Thomas. I will never betray trust if you decide to share with me. Second, don't imply by word or deed that you know when Sophia will call or come here. Of course not, said Olivia, looking shocked. You guessed right. She needs more than I can give her. Oh, Thomas. I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? Olivia asked. I do not know yet. We discussed several options. But not. I haven't made a decision yet. Is there anything I can do to help? Olivia asked. No, I don't think so. Thomas said, squinting at Olivia. Sorry. I'm just wondering what you'll do. I'm quickly approaching that age, and some of the stories I've heard about wives cheating on their husbands because they need more than their husbands can frighten me. And since most of these stories ended in divorce, I wondered what I would do in such a situation. I definitely don't want to cheat on William, but he's 3 years older than me. I'm sure you two can handle it. With all the love you two have for each other, I don't see you cheating on him behind his back. I know I won't, but considering what my mother went through, I just don't want to become. What do you mean? I was 18 when she started having this. She constantly dragged Dad into the bedroom, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Dad ended up inviting a few of his friends to come over a couple times a week, or week. And well, you get the idea. When Dad did this, he didn't know I was home. I heard everything. I was shocked, to say the least. I was afraid of the day this would happen to me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to make love to anyone else. It won't be love. Thomas said no. I guess not. I always had to have very strong feelings to have sex with a man. So for now, William is the only one. Wait. Can I ask you something? Of course. But you may not get an answer. Are your parents still together? Yes, together and happy. Mom went through this a long time ago and Dad still loves her. I can't tell you everything else about their lives. Thank you. So you didn't have any men? Olivia blushed deeply. Maybe we'd better get back to work, she said, standing up and quickly leaving the office. She seemed to share a little more about herself than she wanted to. Thomas chuckled quietly. He spent the rest of the day trying to concentrate on his work. Mostly he succeeded. But during breaks he couldn't stop thinking about what Olivia said about her dad and how he solved his wife's problem. When the day finally ended, he was angry with himself for not doing his job properly. He realized that he had to do something about the situation with Sophia so that he could work without thinking about her. But on the other hand, would it allow him to stop thinking about her and what she was doing? Richard himself took his coat and went home. When he arrived home, Sophia was already there preparing dinner. He was surprised, since she usually arrived later than him. He came up behind her and kissed her on the cheek after dinner. Darling, I really need you, she said. Fine. Then we can talk again. We need to figure this out. I had problems at work because I couldn't stop thinking about what was going on. Even Olivia noticed that something was wrong. I was able to dodge her questions. But if this continues, I won't be able to hide it for long. I completely understand. I also couldn't concentrate on work. Well, dinner will be ready in a while. Why don't you go wash up and change clothes? That I can. While you look after dinner. Of course. Honey, Thomas said, kissing Sophia on the cheek. Sophia sighed as she watched her husband leave the kitchen. She loved him so much she didn't want to bring other men into her life, but she found it difficult to control her body. She was happy that he didn't explode when she brought up her problem, and, believe it or not, it really was a problem. She could barely think. At work, she could barely think about anything other than sex. All she could think about was sex. Thomas returned and took charge of dinner while Sophia went to change. They had dinner after cleaning the kitchen. With Thomas's help, they went into the living room and watched TV for a while. Tell me, who are you thinking about? Yes, his name is Michael. He is 29 years old and flirts with me every time he passes my desk. He had been relentless the past few days. It's almost like he knows about our conversation. Is he cute too? Thomas pulled her nipple again. Yes, he is very cute. He calls me beautiful instead of Sophia. He is a very brave young man. He's what they call a hunter, Thomas said, laughing at Sophia's expression. Is he a bachelor? Yes, she replied. How do you know? I have access to his personal files. It's clear. Do you want to have sex with him? Thomas asked quietly. Only if you allow. Sophia replied. Do you think you can convince him to ask you out for drinks after work? Thomas asked, waiting for Sophia's reaction. You give me permission. No, I'm just asking if you can talk him into it. Thomas replied, grinning. I love you. I want you to be happy. I will do everything to make this happen. If that means you'll date other men, then so be it. I will not take away from you the happiness that I myself gave. If you don't want to go with Michael tomorrow night, choose another day. I'm flexible about the days you need it. Once I give you permission, only you can revoke it. I know I said only for tomorrow, but since it's almost 3 in the morning, you can use it on Friday if you want, and I will always expect you to use your pass when I give it to you to satisfy your desires. Oh my God, Sophia said. Sophia began to cry again. She just looked at her wonderful husband and let the tears flow from her eyes. He was such a kind and understanding man. She loved him so much that it was difficult to express in words. Please understand. Dear Sophia, I will allow you to have sex with anyone, but the first time I have to be there. As I explained before, I won't let you be alone with a man who can't control himself. I need to be there to protect you if necessary. Do you understand, my love? I understand. I understand. I don't think I'll go to work tomorrow, so I'll wait until Friday to use the pass and you will be there to protect me if necessary. Fine. I want you to enjoy this. I want you to. Thomas hesitated. What, dear Sophia asked quietly. I want you to be next to me as long as we live. I don't want to lose you because of another man or because of another man. Oh my God. You'll never lose me to another man. You are my husband and my man forever. No one can replace you. Nobody. Especially a 26-year-old. Arrogant boy. I love you so much. So much that sometimes it hurts, so much so that I think I would go crazy without you. So much so that I can't put it into words. I will never leave you and will always follow your rules and advice. I adore you. I know I'll die if something happens to you. Sophia almost screamed. Can I pick out your clothes for tomorrow? Asked Thomas. Certainly, I want you to look sexy and I want Michael to drool while looking at you. What are you thinking about? Asked Thomas. About Michael. Sophia replied. Was he rude to you? Asked Thomas. Not really. He's just too confident. Maybe you shouldn't sleep with him. Is there anyone else? Asked Thomas. Yes, Alexander. He is the Tito and single and handsome. Why don't you want me to sleep with Michael now? Michael can be a nasty guy. Talk to Alexander. Let Michael see you talking to him. If you can get Alexander to come with you after work, so Michael can see it. Go to the Holiday Inn. Is Alexander a good guy? He's even better than Michael. Great. Take Alexander. I think you'll be better off with him. The good guys always lose. Thomas said. Laughing fits me. Sophia said. Do you like Alexander? Yes, I like it. How many other young men are vying for your attention? Asked Thomas. Timur, Christened and Gilo. Are they good guys? Asked Thomas. Yeah. Much better than Michael. Actually, you should never go out with Michael. He's a hunter. He will only think about himself. How do you know? From the little I've told you. Sophia asked. I knew a lot of guys like Michael. Thomas said. Actually, you knew to who Carlton. Frederick and Thomas, said Thomas. Oh God. You're right. I remember them. They were scoundrels. Here you see. Thomas woke up to the sound of his alarm clock. He growled, pressing the snooze button. He was still so tired that he could barely reach out to turn off the damn alarm clock. Then he remembered last night early morning Sophia. He decided to call and say they wouldn't be coming to work. He whispered. I heard him. I thought we were staying home today. Yes, but we need to call. Don't we? Yes, you are right. Sorry for being rude. Everything is fine. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. If only you could hear me mentally calling the alarm clock, Thomas said, laughing. Sophia giggled as she got out of bed. She had to go downstairs to get her cell phone. Thomas's phone was on the nightstand charging. Both called their workplaces, said that they would not come today. Then they lay down again and fell asleep. They woke up again about 4 hours later. I know you're awake. Sophia said, I know you do. Thomas replied, you, no not. Now I'm just showing you my gratitude for last night. I love you. Thomas said quietly. I love you too. Sophia whispered to him. You are hungry? Asked Thomas. Very. How about breakfast out? Where'd I hop? Thomas suggested. It's been a while since we've been there. But yeah, why not? Sophia said, rolling out of bed and heading to the bathroom. He smiled. She was such a beautiful woman, and he was so glad to have her as his wife. He knew deep down that they would deal with their current problems. He wanted her by his side. As they grew old together, she came out of the bathroom, stood at the foot of the bed and looked at Thomas. Aren't you going to get up? She asked. I was just waiting for you to finish in the bathroom, he said, rolling out of bed and heading to the bathroom. When he left, Sophia was no longer there. Thomas quickly got dressed and went in search of her. She was in the kitchen waiting for him. They went to breakfast. When they returned home, they both undressed and just stood there looking at each other. Well? Thomas asked his beautiful wife. Get dressed. Sophia giggled as she pulled on shorts and a t-shirt. Thomas laughed and did the same the rest of the day. They either watched TV or chatted about everything and nothing, avoiding the topic of what might happen tomorrow night. However, Sophia was quite relieved to be so close to her wonderful, handsome husband. Both of them were thinking about what would happen tomorrow evening. They thought about it a lot. We thought about this often. The next day at work was excruciating. Sophia promised to call him when she found out what she would do after work. He waited patiently in his office all day. At 4 in the afternoon, Sophia called him on his cell phone. Holiday in today at 7 with Alexander. She said quietly, I'll be there. Honey, how are you coping with what we are about to do? I'm excited. I'm super nervous and I love you so much. My heart hurts, she said. Thomas was very surprised by her confession and gasped without meaning to cute. Sophia asked nothing. Dear, I want you to enjoy this evening. I really want to. Thomas said quietly, Oh my God, I love you so much. You're the kindest man a wife could have. I'll try, but I'll think about you all night. Thank you. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I love you too. I'll be at the bar before you arrive. As I already said, I will stay there for an hour after you leave or until you go up to your room. If you go to his house, write to me. Fine. Okay. Honey, Sophia replied quietly. See you at the bar. Try not to give me away. Thomas chuckled. Of course. Expensive. I love you, bye, Sophia said. As she hung up, Thomas lowered his head, trying to calm his nerves. When he looked up, Olivia was standing in front of him with her eyebrows raised. What? Thomas asked rudely. What's going on? Thomas, are you trying to interfere in my personal life? Thomas growled. Yes, I care about you and Sophia. I don't want any of you to get hurt or anything. And Olivia popped down on the chair in front of Thomas's desk. So what, dear? I may have to make the same decision one day, she said quietly. You and William will be fine. I know how much you both love each other, and you still have a lot of time before something like this starts to interfere with your marriage and your lives. I know, but I worry about it. Like any other woman. Only if you believe the rumors and speculation, said Thomas. I think it's true. Listen, go home. Today's Friday. I'll be leaving soon too. Happy weekends. Thank you. I wonder if William can take a day off, Olivia said, happily, as she left Thomas's office. Thomas leaned back in his chair. The only thing he was thinking about was whether he could let this happen tonight. He knew Sophia would accept his decision. He knew she wasn't doing this just to cheat on him. He knew she was really suffering. She has always been a girl with a high sex drive. From the moment he met her, she always needed him. Thomas was enjoying his girlfriend and wife until he started to slow down. And she didn't. Not that he was complaining, but it had become debilitating to the point where it was detrimental to his health. Thomas covered his face with his hands. He introduced his wife to someone else. He didn't even feel a little sick. He chuckled as he continued to watch the images in his mind. Yes, he will let her do it. He loved her enough to satisfy her needs. Nodding, he grabbed his coat and headed for the door. He was leaving and nothing would stop him. He didn't care what others would think if they found out about their agreement. Never mind them. It was his and Sophia's marriage, not theirs. Thomas was sitting at the bar sipping bourbon on ice. He watched the entrance to the lounge area in the permanent mirror that is in every bar. Then he saw her. She looked great. She changed her dress. He wondered if she had stopped by home before coming here. He shook his head. It doesn't matter if he made it in time. He watched as she found a table away from the bar, but still in the light. The bar had some booths with soft lighting for a more romantic atmosphere. As Sophia looked around, she noticed her wonderful husband. She smiled without acknowledging him. He laughed at her smile and smiled back. He then saw a young man in a suit enter the bar. He stood at the door looking around, seeing Sophia. He smiled and hurried to where she was sitting. Sophia smiled at him as he leaned down to kiss her cheek. Thomas thought that when he saw something like this, his mind would be filled with anger. But that did not happen. He smiled at the scene where his wife and young man exchanged pleasantries. He was a handsome young man about 6'feet tall. Thomas estimated his weight at about 160 pounds. His hair was neatly combed and his suit was very nice. The young man's name was Alexander. He was well put together. As he sat down, Sophia raised a hand. The waitress appeared almost immediately, took their drink order and left. Sophia giggled at something Alexander said to her. He smiled back at her. They brought drinks. They were talking quietly now, sipping their drinks and smiling. About half an hour later, Alexander stood up and left the bar. His jacket was still hanging over the back of his chair. Sophia looked at Thomas and pointed up. He nodded. It looked like they would be staying here overnight. He ordered another bourbon and sat quietly drinking it. Alexander is back. He nodded to Sophia. She stood up, taking his arm. He said something, and she giggled again. They each grabbed their drinks as they left the bar. Thomas watched in the mirror as they walked towards the elevator. Thomas looked down at his drink, thinking about what was going to happen in 10 minutes or less. His heart was pounding in his chest. His hands were sweating. He felt sweat beginning to form on his forehead. He wondered if she would go for it, if she would sleep with another man, knowing that her husband was at the bar for another hour. He wondered if he would be strong enough to lead in an hour. Someone sitting next to him surprised him. He looked up at a woman of about 30. He was extremely surprised. She smiled at him. Will you buy the girl a drink? She asked. Of course. Why not? What will you do? He asked. Same as you. She replied. Thomas raised his hand with a raised finger and pointed at the woman next to him. The bartender prepared a drink and served it to the lady. So what's your name? Honey, asked Thomas thickly. She replied, taking a sip of bourbon. Oh my God. Are you trying to get me drunk? She giggled. Do you want me to get you drunk? Asked Thomas. You won't. Please don't. Please don't. Thomas growled. Just enjoy your drink. I'll leave in 45 minutes. About fine. What would you like to talk about? How about why you do what you do? What do you think I'm doing? Oh good. Forget. Thomas turned back to the mirror. He could still see the attractive young woman next to him, but he didn't look at her. He watched as Sophia exited the elevator. He doubted that he would see her, but he continued to look, just in case. Okay. Sorry. Allison said I came here to find men. My husband loves it when I do this. Thomas's eyes widened in surprise at her frankness. He turned to her again. And how much do you love your husband? More than you can imagine. She said, Oh, I can imagine a lot. He replied, chuckling. What brought you here for such a short time? Allison asked. My wife is upstairs with a young friend. Oh my God. Are you going to get up and watch? No, I'm just here to make sure he doesn't hurt her. If she doesn't come down in 40 minutes, I'll go home and wait for her to return. Probably in the morning. Is it true? Oh my God. Do you see the man in the corner? Booth. Yes, your husband. Yes, he likes to watch. He loves to watch. Yes, I thought about it. But it's not for me. The only reason this is happening is because my wife is going through changes and I can't physically handle it. She asked to be allowed to date other men until she no longer wanted to have sex all the time. This is her first meeting. Oh my God. You are a special man, you want. I can't even cope with my own wife. What do you think will happen to us? I understand your point of view. Do you want me to keep you company until you leave? And no. You don't need to patronize the old man. You can go and get what you want from any of the young guys that are starting to come in here looking for a hot woman like you. Do you really think I'm hot? She asked in surprise. Certainly. You're almost as beautiful as my wife, but I'm probably biased. Vicky smiled at him, leaned over and kissed his cheek. Then she wiped off her lips. Sorry. She said thanks for the drink. Now I have a new drink. I like him. What is this? Bourbon on the rocks. And all my friends were saying how terrible bourbon is. It's not for everybody. Well, I loved him. Thank you. I'll go now. Maybe I'll see you another time. You never know, we can become regular customers. Allison smiled as she slid off the stool. You are cute. I hope everything works out for you. Thank you, Allison. I hope everything works out for you too. Nodding, she walked away and sat down with her husband. Thomas looked around. He didn't see Sophia. I looked at my watch, only a few minutes left. He enjoyed the conversation with Allison. He would have to tell Sophia about her. Looking up, he saw Allison and her husband leaving the bar with another young man. She must have found someone who will let him watch. Smiling, he got up and went home. When he came home, he undressed and went into the office. He was watching TV but wasn't particularly interested in what was being shown. He kept thinking about Sophia and Alexander and what they were doing. He wasn't angry. He just hoped Sophia was having fun and would come back to him turning off the TV. He lay down in bed and tossed and turned. Eventually he fell asleep. Sophia returned and woke him up. He looked at the alarm clock on the nightstand. It was 5. In the morning he carefully turned to his wife. She was smiling, but her eyes were closed. Sorry, I woke you up. Sophia said. No, don't apologize. Thomas replied, chuckling. You are right. Did you have a good time? Sophia closed her eyes tightly. She knew Thomas would ask, but she wasn't ready to answer him. Yes, she said quietly. Fine. We'll talk more in the morning. Thomas said. They both fell asleep within seconds. Later on Saturday morning, Sophia lay in bed next to her husband, watching him closely. She wondered how he would react to what she did last night. All night there were no words of love from Alexander, only praise and gratitude. They had talked before about what Sophia wanted and wanted. Alexander agreed to all her demands and wishes. She was extremely pleased with what they had done. Now she just had to make sure that her beloved husband had no objections about. Last night, Sophia lay watching Thomas for about 20 minutes before he began to stir. He sighed, opening his eyes. When they focused on her face, he sighed again. She smiled at him. Thomas smiled back. He simply watched her full signs of displeasure. She did the same to him. Both laughed at the same time. When they stopped, Thomas hugged Sophia. He let go of his wife and hurried to the bathroom. Sophia looked after him. Then she also hurried to the bathroom. She stood there waiting for Thomas to finish and danced in place. Thomas beat long and hard. He finished in a few seconds. Sophia hurriedly sat down on the toilet and did her business. Thomas brushed his teeth and returned to the bedroom. Sophia followed him a few minutes later. Did you have fun? Asked Thomas. Sophia looked at her husband in surprise. He smiled. His eyes radiated only love and passion. Yes, I had a lot of fun last night, she replied. Did he hurt you? No, he didn't hurt me. Sophia replied. Fine, fine. Would you tell me if you did something you didn't like? Certainly, I would also return home earlier. How did Michael react when he saw you to leave? I was waiting for you to ask about him. He looked really furious that I was walking to the car with Alexander. He ran up and started getting angry and spitting, calling me a liar. I turned to him and asked if he understood who I was working for. He just looked at me blankly. I told him I worked for the head of HR, and if he wanted to keep his job, he better shut up and stop pestering me. He left very angry. Do you think he'll cause trouble? Should not. I have all the trump cards in my hands. The only thing he could have done was put a camera in the room with us, and it really wouldn't have meant anything. The company has an anti-harassment policy and a ban on flirting in the workplace, but neither of these apply to Alexander and me, since we don't even work in the same department. Besides, if Michael causes trouble, I'll beat him up and then fire him. I just need to add the termination notice to the stack of documents that Eric has to sign. Sophia laughed at what she said. I'm surprised they're not all standing at your desk kissing your feet, Thomas said. Sophia laughed loudly at his words. Who is next? Thomas asked quietly. Oh my God, I think Chris. He is a good man. Very polite. Very complimentary. Very handsome and has a great body. As far as I can tell. Then, Tuesday night you need to finish earlier than last night. I might give you Friday nights instead of Thursday nights so you can enjoy them longer. Maybe you'll think about seeing Alexander on Tuesday and Chris on Friday. Sophia lay looking at her husband. Surprise on her face and in her eyes. She shook her head to clear her thoughts. Her heart singing with love for this dear man who was her husband. Will you do this for me? She asked. I look at your face now and before and see how much you enjoyed your free evening with Alexander. I think you can enjoy one night session per week and one evening session. What about afternoon sessions? I think I'll wait with them. And maybe only 2 days a week. If the way I'm sick right now is any indication appalling. Don't make any strict and final decisions now. Stay flexible. Everything can change as you want in the future. The same goes for you. If you ever want me to stop, just say the word. What word? Thomas asked, smiling at his wife. Sophia giggled and punched him on the shoulder. She laid down next to him and sighed. He loved her so much. All he wanted was for her to be happy and satisfied. They lay together in silence for a moment before Thomas stood up to get dressed. I'm hungry. I'll take you somewhere, he said. They went to IHOP again and had a great time. We returned home about an hour and a half later. Sophia pulled Thomas towards her, hugging him. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you and only you. No one can replace you. I know, honey. So I agreed to let you date other men until your desires subside. Thank you, darling God. I love you more every day. Sophia cried, tears now streaming down her cheeks. Do you want to go to dinner? Thomas asked, smiling slightly. Fine. Where will we go? Don't know where. Would you like to go in Corelli and then to the club dancing? Okay, shower and get dressed. They both went to the shower. Half an hour later, Thomas stood at the front door waiting for Sophia. When he saw her, he gasped. She looked obscene. Her hair was loose and shiny from being combed. Her face was impeccably made up, making her look even younger than usual. Her dress, which Thomas had seen her wear before now, seemed much more revealing. You look so sexy tonight, Thomas said, eyes devouring his wife. They had a good time at dinner at the club. They found a table near the dance floor. They ordered drinks and stood listening to music. It was a slow, calm melody. Thomas took Sophia's hand and led her to the dance floor. Sophia smiled at her husband the whole way. Thomas hugged her tightly. They danced 3 songs. Returning to their table, they sipped their drinks while looking into each other's eyes. A young man approached them and asked Sophia to dance. She agreed without looking at Thomas. He was surprised because she had never accepted an invitation to dance before. He watched as the young man led Sophia onto the dance floor. They danced for a long time. Eventually, Sophia looked at the young man and laughed. She pulled away from him and walked back to Thomas. The young man stood, his face distorted with anger. Do you know him? Thomas asked. As Sophia sat down, yes and no. I do not know him. A woman chaser, she said, giggling. I got it. Do you want to leave? I want to dance with you one more time and then we can leave. Thomas took her hand and led her to the dance floor. They had just started dancing when someone tapped Thomas on the shoulder. Turning around, he saw the racer behind the women. Thomas shook his head. Turning to Sophia, he was slapped on the shoulder again, this time harder. Turning, he looked at the driver behind the women. One more touch and I'll have you on the floor, Thomas said. The guy looked surprised when Thomas didn't move an inch. The next thing that happened was so fast that even Sophia didn't see what Thomas did. Get away before you get hurt. Boy, Thomas said softly. You. The guy didn't have time to finish. Two bouncers dragged him out of the club. Thomas simply smiled at him while he screamed and cursed. Let on. Go home, honey, Sophia said, walking back to the table, pulling Thomas with her. You know he'll be waiting outside. Of course he's a woman. Chaser, Sophia said, nodding. Thomas led her to the exit outside. The bouncers were still trying to restrain the guy. Thomas walked over, pulled out his wallet and showed the three men something. The guy gasped, turning around. He tried to run away but didn't have time. Sophia stood watching the four men. She smiled as her husband took control of the situation. The two bouncers left as Thomas nodded towards the club. The guy was shaking like a leaf as Thomas spoke to him quietly. When Thomas finished speaking, the guy slowly turned and left. Thomas slowly retreated towards Sophia, not taking his eyes off the guy. What did you say to him? Sophia asked. I told him that if he ever set foot in the club again, I would beat him to a pulp. Would you do that? Yes, I would kill to protect you. Oh my God. When they returned home, they immediately went to bed. Sophia, I love you. I will love you until the end of our day. I want you to be happy. I will do almost anything to ensure your happiness. If that means you have to date other men or women to be happy because you get what you need and what I can't give you without dying, then I'm okay with that, as long as I know about it. I've said it all before. I understand that you have needs that I cannot satisfy without compromising my health. I know, but you'll have to reassure me along the way. I would hate to wake up one morning and find divorce papers on the pillow next to me because I was enjoying myself too much or didn't pick up on the signal you've been sending me all month. Don't worry. That will never happen. I'll tell you as soon as I feel something needs to change. Honey, Thomas replied, fine. Do you need anything now? Just you next to me. I'm pretty tired. You exhausted me today. Okay. I love you. Good night, my dear. Thomas said. Good night, my love. I really love you. They hugged and quickly fell asleep. On Sunday morning, Sophia woke up before her husband again. This time, instead of watching him, she got up and made breakfast, smelling the smell of food. Thomas woke up and went in search to see him. She smiled. You look delightful this morning, my dear, said Thomas. Thank you, darling. Now sit down and eat. You need to save your strength. Yes, dear, Thomas muttered. Don't be so sarcastic. Dear, never said. Thomas sat down, looking at his wife as she sat down. Then he started eating. Sophia looked at her handsome husband as he ate. Her heart sang with love for him. She couldn't believe how lucky she was to have him as her husband. When they finished breakfast, Thomas helped Sophia clean up. Then she led him into the living room. She turned on the TV and handed him the remote control. Surprised, Thomas flipped through the channels until he found something he thought Sophia would like. Now see what you want. I'll just sit here and look at the most loving and handsome man in the world. Sophia. Thank you. But now I feel awkward. No need, just watch TV. Thomas flipped through the channels again. There was a golf tournament that he saw on one of the channels. Once he found it, he placed the remote on the coffee table. Sophia looked at the TV and was surprised but pleased that he had found something to watch, even though she knew he didn't play golf for the next 2 hours. They both sat on the couch. Thomas watched the tournament and Sophia looked at her wonderful husband. What would you like to do today? Asked Thomas. Don't know. I love just sitting here with you. I feel your love even when you watch TV. And I love that feeling getting up and looking at the clock. They were surprised that it was dinner time. Thomas went to a nearby fast food restaurant to buy some burgers and fries. After dinner, they returned to the bedroom, hugged each other, and fell asleep. Monday was quite normal for Thomas. He went to work, completed the necessary tasks, and returned home. Sophia's day was different, especially after lunch. That's when it all started. Michael burst into her desk screaming like a crazy. He screamed so loudly that Mr. Anderson came out of his office to understand what was happening. What he saw and had upset him extremely. He took Sophia's phone and called security. "Ed, shut up," Eric shouted. Michael continued to swear and complain about being fired. Eric yelled at him again. Michael looked at Eric with fury in his eyes. Eric just laughed as he walked around his desk. When he reached his place, two guards entered the office. Eric raised his hand but beckoned them inside. They took positions on either side of Michael. So what the hell are you talking about here? Derek. And no screaming. Or you'll just walk out of here. Understood. Yes, Mr. Anderson. Michael replied. Sophia threatened to fire me if I didn't leave her alone. And why did Sophia have to threaten you? Young man. Because I was mad at her for not going. Never mind. It's clear. So you were trying to start a relationship with my assistant outside of work. So, I guess I don't want to say anything else. Fine. But you should have come to me about the layoff notice. Ed, not to Sophia. She didn't write it. Your boss did what? Why, he could never find you at your table. You've never done a job that anyone knows about. You were always out of place. And these are just some of the reasons. But in this state, we as a company don't need a reason to fire you. Anyone in a position higher than you can request to be fired. Understood? Damn. It said Michael. This is assault. We can now add criminal charges to the list. Gentlemen, please escort Michael to his desk. Ensure he has his personal effects back and then escort him out of the building and grounds. Of course, Mr. Anderson. Let's go. Ed said one of the guards. My name is Michael. You idiot. Michael shouted. Okay. Michael. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. The kid was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. Let's go. The other guard laughed as they escorted it out of the office. When they left, Eric called Sophia and asked her to come to his office. Sophia came in and quickly sat down. She understood that questions would now follow. She had the answers. But she didn't know if Mr. Anderson would understand what happened between you. And Michael asked Eric nothing special. He came and flirted. It was cute at first. I reciprocate his feelings and apparently he mistakenly decided that there was something between us. I told him he was wrong and to back off. He got angry. He saw me talking to Alexander about his benefits package and became very jealous. I threatened to fire him and he became furious. I made it clear that I would not tolerate any antics from him and told him to stay away from me. It's clear. We have received several similar complaints from other women. Why didn't you tell me about this? I thought I had it covered until this morning. Understood well. We fired him this morning for dereliction of duty. Apparently he was too busy flirting with women, not just you, to do his job. I told him that he is often absent from his desk. He just shrugged and continued flirting with me. At first it was funny. Then I got tired of it. Fine. If he gives you a hard time outside of work, let me know and I'll get a restraining order for him and tell your husband about it. Of course. Sir, I've already told my husband about Michael. Fine. Do you have anything else for me today? Asked Eric. No, sir. I don't expect anything more today. Fine. Then why don't you go home for the rest of the day? See you tomorrow. You're spoiling me. So don't you worry. You'll work twice as hard tomorrow. Yes, sir. Thank you. Sophia said, standing up and leaving the office. She was amazed that she didn't know about Michael's dissolution. His boss must have personally brought the documents to Eric's office on the Friday after Sophia left. Sophia got home faster than usual because there were no traffic jams. She hurried into the house. Went upstairs. She called Thomas to let him know she was home for the day. She asked if he could be free a little early today. Sorry, honey. There's a big problem and I'll have to stay here for the rest of the day. Would you like me to pick up something for dinner on the way home? No, dear. I'm at home, so I can cook something for us. Don't worry. Just come back as soon as possible. Okay. Of course, dear. I'll see you soon. I love you. Tobias said bye. Honey, I love you too. Sophia said and hung up. Sophia began to undress when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Looking at her watch in bewilderment, she wondered who it could be. She went downstairs and looked through the peephole. She was overcome with disgust when she saw Michael. She pressed a button on the panel next to the door. A telephone call came from the panel. Speaker 911. What is your emergency? A voice came from the speaker. I had a man trying to break into my house. Do you know him? Yes, we worked in the same company today. He was fired. He thinks I'm involved in this. I'm afraid he might harm me. The police are on their way. Madam, should we call your husband? If I may. Please. Sophia said we'll do it. Please stay on the line. The operator said. Suddenly the door opened with a crash hitting the opposite wall. Michael rushed inside without noticing. Sophia quickly pulled out a small pistol from a drawer in the table by the door that was there for such occasions. She stood as quietly as possible. Michael looked around without looking back at the door. He screamed her name, then ran deeper into the house. Sophia hurried out of the house and headed towards the garage. She heard the sound of sirens getting closer and closer as they got louder. Michael ran out of the house. He ran past Sophia again and headed to his car. Michael. Sophia shouted his name. He stopped abruptly and turned to her. He started to walk towards her, but stopped when she raised the gun, pointing it at his chest. He froze, his eyes wide with fear. At that moment, two police cars and two black SS were speeding down the street. Michael looked at his car. Do not move. I'll shoot, Sophia said. When the police cars and subs stopped, two men emerged from, each with guns drawn. Sophia saw her husband lowered the gun and stood motionless. One of the police officers handcuffed Michael. Thomas stood over him, shaking his head. He started to say something, then changed his mind and hurried to Sophia. He took the gun from her hand and hugged her tightly. The three men who came with Thomas took control of the situation. The police simply nodded and left. Michael was now sitting in one of the SCS. Thomas took his wife back into the house, put the gun back in the drawer, kissed her and left. A little later, two men and a woman came to fix the door. Sophia Simpel nodded at them as they worked. They finished in less than an hour and left. Sophia then showered and got dressed. When she returned to the kitchen, Thomas was there, having just taken a beer out of the refrigerator. He turned to Sophia and frowned. She also frowned and nodded at him. Sophia sat down at the kitchen table. Are you hungry, honey? Asked Thomas. No, not now. Thank you for so many things that I can't list them all. You can always count on me, my love, Thomas said as he sat down opposite her at the table. I thought you had a lot of work to do, she asked. Well, happens, doesn't it? No, that's not the case anymore. I can do what I need to do at home today. Yes, me too. Eric, let me go home after that idiot. Michael got fired. Oh, did that trigger him? Yeah. He thought I had something to do with it. And well, never mind. No, this is important. But if you ever want to talk about it, I'm always here for you. Honey, I know, us in the first. Dear, I know you always take care of me and I really appreciate you and everything you do for everyone. Stop doing that. What I do for everyone is my job for you. I do this because of the love I feel for you. Oh God, how lucky am I that I deserve you. What do you want it to do now? Asked Thomas. I just want you to hold cash for me. Okay, you roar in the bedroom in bed, Sophia said quietly. They spent the rest of the day in bed until their stomachs began to complain. Then they went to a nice restaurant for dinner. Then they returned to the bedroom and hugged again. Tomorrow? Asked Thomas. Don't know. I'll call you. But if I meet Alexander, you don't have to be there. If you don't want to, I want to be there. Just in case. Just in case. What, Michael and Alexander are friends? No, God. No, Michael hates. Alexander is indifferent to Michael. Then I want to be there. Will Michael be released no less than 72 hours later? Once charged, he will be able to apply for bail. He will be denied due to the nature of his crime. And about this, breaking and entering with intent to harm you, my wife, and because of your position, they won't let him go. It's right problem. No, he deserves what he gets. Fine. Good night, darling. Yes, I know I have a long day at work tomorrow. Good night, my love. I love you very much. Thomas whispered. I love you just as much, Sophia whispered back, closing her eyes. The next morning, Tuesday, Thomas left the house before Sophia's alarm clock woke up, shaking her head. She took a shower, got dressed and went to work. She went to a diner near work and bought 2 sandwiches for breakfast. One for Eric and one for myself. She sat down at her desk, leaving a sandwich for Eric on his desk. He ran past her as she began to eat. He shouted thanks to her from his office. She smiled and shouted back that he was always welcome. After eating, he called her into his office. "How do you feel?" asked Eric. "Fine. But Michael is in jail now after what he did yesterday afternoon." "What did he do? Did I hurt you?" "No, he didn't hurt me. He broke into our house. I called 911 and they called my husband. He arrived with 3 other men along with the police cars, and Michael was arrested. He will be in prison for a very long time. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, G. Eric, you didn't hire him." Sophia smiled at Eric and winked at him. Eric almost choked. What does Thomas think about what happened? He's angry, but only because Michael targeted me. "So he knows Michael was flirting with you here?" asked Eric, feeling a little awkward. "Oh yeah. I told him everything. When Michael started flirting with me, I told Thomas I said I could handle this. He agreed with this. I thought I did it okay. Sophia, I have a lot of work for you today. First, I want you to write about everything that happened yesterday, including his breaking into your house. And how did he know where you live? He was probably following me. Oh my God. Is there a reason why your husband doesn't have security for you?" I told him no. Perhaps he now has security, but I haven't seen one for hell. Okay. Just give me the report by the end of the day and whatever is in your inbox. Please. Of course. That's why I came today, Sophia said, smiling and standing up. Eric smiled back and began sorting through the papers in his mailbox. First, Sophia sorted out her mailbox, knowing that new documents would soon appear there. Then she wrote everything that happened yesterday with Michael. When she finished, it was lunchtime and Alexander was just passing by. He offered to take her to lunch and she agreed. At dinner, they talked about everything except Michael. As they finished, Sophia asked a question, "Would you like a drink tonight?" She asked quietly. "Yes, I was hoping you would suggest that I didn't mean to because of what happened yesterday." "Yes, I understand. So tonight at the Holiday Inn, of course." "Yes, I would really like to spend another night with you." "Then I'll see you at the hotel at 700. "Yes, I'll be there." "Okay. I think it's time for us to get back to work." Sophia called Thomas and told him the time. She heard him smile in response. Now she was smiling too. She really liked Alexander, but she knew she shouldn't let her emotions get the better of her. Sophia entered the bar at 7 sharp. She noticed Alexander immediately. He sat at a table in a visible place. Thomas was hard to spot, but she eventually found him at the end of the bar. She smiled at Alexander as she sat down. He didn't try to hug or kiss her. He stood up like a gentleman should. Sophia was very pleased with this. The waitress brought the drinks. Alexander must have just come in and ordered. He remembered what she drank last time. They sat sipping drinks and talking as they ordered the second round. Thomas knew they would soon be heading upstairs. He smiled, knowing that his wife would get what she needed at that moment. He loved her so much that he allowed her any freedom as long as she returned to him later. Some would consider this a weakness. He knew that he was not weak. He was not a wimp. He laughed at those who thought so. When their drinks arrived, Sophia and Alexander stood up and headed towards the elevator. Sophia turned and smiled at her husband. He smiled back. He sat on his stool for an hour sipping beer. Then he got up and left. Thomas sat in his chair waiting for Sophia to return from her date. Yes, that's what he called them, dates. He accepted that she needed to get her needs met and knew that she would never leave him. Just like he will never leave her. They were together for 40 years. They raised 2 children together. They still loved each other and had sex. Except now Sophia needed more than Thomas could give her. The fact that she discussed with him instead of going behind his back impressed him. His love for Sophia became even stronger. Sophia quietly entered the house. She almost screamed in fright when she saw Thomas still awake and watching her. He smiled, almost laughing, as she closed and locked the door. Smiling, she approached her husband. "I love you so much," she whispered. And I love you. Why aren't you in bed? I wanted to make sure you were okay with all of this. Yes, everything's fine. And you, Sophia? Asked in response. Me too. Now let's go to bed. Sophia's desire increased before decreasing to an acceptable level. During this time, she slept with 3 men. She worked with each of them, spent the first Friday with her. Then they began to alternate Fridays and Tuesdays. She also met one of Thomas's friends during lunch breaks during the week. She chose the youngest. At that moment she was in 7th heaven and got everything she needed without killing her husband. A year passed before her desire waned enough that she and Thomas decided she no longer needed to date other men. She happily gave them up and returned to her loving husband and he to his loving wife. They were still young enough to enjoy each other. They made it a tradition to go to the holiday every Friday, where Thomas would pretend to pick up Sophia, book a room and spend the night and morning having sex. They enjoyed life as long as they could enjoy each other in and out of bed. Apart from what they did on Fridays, their lives were pretty much the same as before. Sophia's problem appeared after she stopped dating. She never mentioned her lovers again, and neither did Thomas now. She was only interested in Thomas, although sometimes she took him in the most unusual places. They're lucky they've never been caught with their pants down, be it in her office or his. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.